One of my interests in the world, excuse me, is NATO and the relationship between America and NATO. I think that NATO is going through some kind of enlargement at the moment. It has enlarged itself. It's introduced 2 new NATO member countries into its alliance. So it has enlarged, which is quite unusual considering that most of the NATO member states are cutting back on their defence budgets. And in particular, America has negative views and relationships with NATO at the moment. I think it's quite stigmatised by NATO. I think that it doesn't see it as a very beneficial alliance for the future. So I think there are contentions between NATO and America, and I think that NATO might not have so much of a problem with it because it does seem quite confident with its enlargement and its presence in Europe. So it seems to be quite confident. But I think when it comes to America, it is taking quite a firm stance with NATO in some of its things it said in the media as well. So I think that America is trying to disband NATO, and that seems a little bit unusual because NATO is quite big at the moment and America is trying to disband it. So I think that is quite an unusual. I don't know what concern America has over NATO. I think it's something to do with the relationship NATO has with Taiwan. I think that's one of the concerns America has. So I think that whereas Europe might not be too concerned about NATO, I think America is a little bit concerned about NATO and is looking to disband the alliance. And I think that this could be maybe a setback because NATO is there to protect against Russian aggression, and I think there is Russian aggression there. I think there's a lot of Russian aggression. So I think NATO is still relevant for the world, but I think America is for some reason trying to disband it. I think it could be concerned about the level of Russian violence in Europe with the Ukraine war, and also Russian intentions with Europe. Russia has manufactured and produced 1 million tanks at the cost of $750 billion. It spent this over a 10-year period. $750 billion, which is a huge military stimulus package for its arms industry, for its military. And I think it has produced 1 million tanks. So I think that's a huge number of tanks, and that these tanks can roll out all over Europe immediately with 24 hours notice. So I think that we do have kind of not so much Europe on standby, but Russia prepared to use a concerted military effort in Europe at any moment's notice, without any warning, and with a very hostile level of threat. So I think America could be concerned with some kind of issue there. And I think that the fact that NATO has enlarged to perhaps confront and stabilise this Russia threat could be a little bit positive for things. But I think how America is dealing with NATO by insisting that countries in the alliance cut back on their defence budgets, so perhaps NATO can ease off and disappear. I think America's policy with these defence budgets is outrageous, and I think that that's one of the contentions with America. I think that American military is kind of in an awkward position. So that's my view about American NATO. Thank you.